So here are three things that the U.S. could really learn from Australia. The first thing that I think is probably the most important one, definitely, is Australia's retirement system, which is they call superannuation. Superannuation is one of the most interesting ideas, and it's very uniquely Australian, by the way, uh, in modern like pension and social security discussion, really. Started in the 90s, and it's been gradually just replacing what normally is considered just, honestly, retirement funding and all that. And I dare say that Australia is probably the only country, not just in the developed world, but in the world overall, that is not going to suffer with an aging population in terms of pension system because it is so well prepared for it. And as of 2025, employers pay 12% of employees' salaries to a fund in the employee's name. Of course, America has some sort of things like RA contributions, that sort of thing, that kind of mimic this in a way. But Australia depends on this much more heavily. Like this is the main way through which Australians are going to get retired, the main way through which they're going to fund for their retirement years. And it is infinitely better because it's not a pension fraud. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's actually your own money that companies pay in your name on top of your salary, not from taken away from your salary, but actually on top of your salary in a very decent percentage. 12% is a very decent percentage that you can invest, that you can choose who to invest with, and that in certain situations it can actually take away from. So if you leave the country, if you no longer a resident, if you're going to buy a house, etc. And the only way that any developed country is going to work in the next 50 years is by gradually changing from a pay-as-you-go to a superannuation sort of system where you have your own money. That doesn't mean that for some part of the population, some sort of pension would not be necessary, because it might be just due to differences in how much people accumulate over their life. If someone hasn't worked enough, if they were paid maybe minimum wage throughout their lives, what they end up with in the end might not be enough to actually sustain themselves. So obviously, you have to consider that as well. But to have a superannuation system is honestly the only way that governments in generally developed countries would not go bankrupt by the increasingly aging population. And it might seem like it's too radical of a move. Like, how do you make employers all of a sudden pay 12% on top of everyone's salaries, just like to RA contributions, for example? And obviously, it is more complicated than that. You would probably have to start with a lower number, like Australia did, and gradually, as you increase this number, you decrease social contributions in a way where within 30, 40 years, you can actually mostly solve this problem. It could also be done at a state level. I don't normally like things done at a state level. It's definitely something to consider. And it's probably the most solid thing Australia has in relation to like other countries, in relation to the US, but also to Europe, is how solid the pension system is, the social security and the superannuation is, because it's truly remarkable how well it works. And honestly, obviously, there's flaws all with everything, but overall, it's an amazingly good system. The second thing that, by the way, I'm in Sydney right now, in a nice little park. And the second thing that I think the US could take from Australia is overall just how much better Australia's immigration system is compared to the US. The US's sort of obsession with lottery. Like there's a green card lottery and there's a H-1Bs lottery and there's a bunch of different lotteries in immigration. And lotteries are kind of stupid because you take like competence out of the equation. Whereas here in Australia, with the point system and with sponsorship and all that, you get to, first of all, yeah, be much more particular about who you want without depending on lottery, and also give candidates a more accurate assessment of how likely it is that they're going to get a visa. And so the U.S. has such a complex immigration system, and looking towards not only Australian models but also European models could greatly increase how cohesive really America immigration to America is. And as an immigrant myself, not an immigrant, but you know, I've been moving around. I've had to apply for visas and stuff. This is something that people value a lot. Like good people, competent people are not gonna want to move to your country if they have no idea whether they're going to be able to stay or how long they're going to be able to stay or what will the rules be because the system is just so bureaucratic. And even for things like a marriage green card or like a partner visa or sons of American citizens, children of American citizens that like should obviously get a PR like not immediately, but as soon as possible. Uh, the process is still insanely bureaucratic. And then when we get into just employment visas in general, there's a few exceptions. There's the A3 visa for Australians, which seems to be really, really simple. But for most nationalities, you're just stopping companies from hiring workers that they need because of all the criteria and regulation and randomness that is generally attributed and associated with the immigration system. If you do more like Australia, where you have a more explicit set of skills and demand, where it's a little easier to sponsor candidates, and where it's a little more broad, because in the U.S., really, to sponsor someone, uh, they have, first of all, to have at least a bachelor's degree and more likely a master's degree. And so you end up only being able to fulfill certain professions that are really, really high up, and some professions a little bit at the lower end that still need to be done and have a huge deficit. Simply, you can't get people into America legally to do them, and that's one thing that really drives illegal immigration. And then the third thing that I think is really important to consider overall. Change this part is actually quite. But yeah, third thing that I think could really help America overall, not only in terms of like being a smart idea and being fun, but also helping the vision that people have of America over the globe. Because one thing that I've been noticing is Europeans, uh, Australians, Canadians, especially Europeans and Australians, I'd say, they kind of hate America. And that's especially true in the younger generations. And one thing that could be used to mitigate that is for America to have a similar sort of working holiday in the same way that Australia, New Zealand, Canada, many other countries have. America right now is very restrictive with who it can go and work. Normally, you're going to go on a J1 visa on a working holiday where you have to have gone to college. Like it's much more complicated to go to America as a young person from other developed countries than it is to go to Australia. And if America were to simplify that, a lot of people come to Australia for wages, like wages in Australia are notoriously higher than in Italy, in the UK, in France, in Germany. And so obviously, young people want to come, they want to look around, they want to save some money. They come to Australia. And they have the option of going to America as a young American, as a young Australian, and seeing what the country is about and making a contribution. And I believe the holiday in more or less the molds of the Australian working holiday were started in America. First of all, it would lower pressure on illegal immigration because so many people come to Australia, for example, to work on farms, work as waiters, work on jobs that in America are typically filled by illegal immigrants. You could instead have legal immigrants or legal temporary workers from countries that are not that likely to immigrate to the U.S. because they're developed countries. So they don't have that much of an incentive to go to America. They could make a good chunk of money, probably even more than they make in Australia, since wages in America are generally higher. They could experience a little bit of the American life. And not only would that lower pressure for and lower need for illegal immigration in America, but that would also improve the appearance and the image that America has overall the younger population of some of its closer allies, because Canada, Australia, Europe, no matter what has been going through lately, clearly allies of the United States. And so, if you let the youth of those countries go into America, first of all, much less likely that they're going to overstay their visa than, let's say, someone from Brazil or Peru or Colombia or whatever. Second, they can actually see that America is not all bad, that there's good things about America that they can greatly appreciate. And then, third but not least, they can contribute to this just deficit of jobs, deficit of employees, sorry, in the American economy, where you desperately need, there's a labor shortage, and you can address it in a legal way. It actually helps America's culture and the image of America worldwide overall. So these are three things that America could learn from Australia. You want to know that?